late start on this. Our meeting went longer than expected. The agenda is TO 13-3, an ordinance amending the comprehensive zoning ordinance of the City of Methuen, Parcel A off House Street. I'll call our roll. Councilor Atkinson.
Here.
Councilor Campagnone.
Here.
Councilor Shula.
Here.
Councilor Condon.
Here.
Councilor Ferry.
Here.
Councilor Canan is abstaining. Councilor Marsan.
Here.
Councilor Papalato.
Here.
Chairman Fountain. I also would like to ask if in public participation, if we could limit it to 5 minutes per speaker due to the fact of the large volume of attendees tonight, and this is just the first order of business for the zoning change, and there is a meeting right afterwards of community development also, and they wanted to get that in tonight. And Mr. DeFeo will continue with calling his role and the legal notice.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Steve DeFeo. I'm Chairman of the Community Development Board. Joseph Leone.
Present.
Attorney Peralt.
Here.
Ted Rademacher.
Here.
Deborah Quinn.
Here.
Paul Gallo. Frank Gallo, I'm sorry.
Here.
Mike Comey.
Here.
Excuse me. And representing the department, the director is William Buckley, Assistant Director Kathleen Caldwell, and our clerk, Nancy Hudson. And I'll read the legal notice into the meeting minutes. Notice is hereby given that the Methuen City Council and Methuen Community Development Board will hold a joint public hearing on Wednesday, July 10, 2013, at 6:30 p.m. in the Great Hall of the Searles Building, 41 Pleasant Street, Methuen, Mass., with all parties interested, pursuant to the authority conferred by Chapter 40A of the General Laws to amend the zoning map of the city as follows: to rezone that area of land located off House Street as shown as Parcel A on a plan of land Emerald Pines off House Street, Methuen, Mass., prepared for Toll M.A. LLC by MHF Design Consultants. The lot contains approximately 121,499 acres. I'm sorry, it's 121.499 acres. The proposed zoning map amendment will change the parcel from its present designation as rural residential to multifamily residential, or MA district. The proposed zoning amendment is available for inspection in the Community Development Office at the Searles Building, 41 Pleasant Street, Suite 217, Methuen, Mass., signed by Sean Fountain, Chairman of Methuen City Council, and Stephen F. DeFeo, Jr., Chairman of the Methuen Community Development Board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
Okay, if we, the individuals, Mr. Capani doing the presentation.
Mr. Chairman and members of the City Council, Chairman and members of the Community Development Board, good evening. My name is Anthony Capani, and my office is located at 265 Broadway in Methuen. I'm here this evening on behalf of the petitioner, Toll Mass 4 LLC, which I shall simply refer to as Toll during my presentation. Now, Toll is seeking to rezone an area of land located off of House Street containing approximately 121.5 acres at the site commonly known as Emerald Pines, from its present designation as residential rural to a multifamily residence A. The purpose of this petition is to be able to develop this tract of land as an active adult community to provide housing for residents 55 years of age and older, which will be age restricted and not age targeted as initially submitted. We have listened to the city's concerns, and I want to make it clear at the outset of my presentation that this community will be age restricted. Now, before I discuss the details of this petition, it's important for you to know something about the applicant, because ultimately, the best assurance that the city has that this proposal or any proposal that you have before you will have a positive impact on the city and its neighborhood is the reputation and the ability of the developer to perform its obligations. Toll is the largest builder of luxury homes in the country, having received recognition for its accomplishments not only in the building industry, but also for its active affiliation with national and local charities. In 2012, Toll was recognized as the Home Builder of the Year by Professional Builder magazine, a well-respected journal in the industry, and was named Most Admired Builder in the industry by Fortune magazine. I think that's like making the front page of Sports Illustrated. Now, in attendance this evening, representing Toll, is Greg Kamildowski, who's the group president of New England and Connecticut, Dave Bauer, its division vice president, and Scott Maselli, the land development manager, and finally, Scott Dennis, the project manager, whom you will have an opportunity to meet and ask questions if necessary. Now, Toll has the experience and the ability to develop an adult active community at this site in a manner that will be an asset to the city and the neighborhood alike. Now, you'll be happy to know that you don't have to rely on my representations here this evening, because in this instance, the city has a distinct advantage because Toll has already developed a model active adult community right here in Methuen known as the Regency. The Regency features a luxurious planned community consisting of quality homes, including many amenities, and it enjoys an excellent reputation in the community, and Toll has fully cooperated during the process of developing this community with the city boards and departments. Now, if this petition is approved, it's Toll's desire to essentially duplicate this experience at Emerald Pine with some modifications, in that all the homes proposed for the Emerald Pine site will be single family and the spacing will be further apart. Now, Dave Bauer, who from the beginning was instrumental in the implementation and coordination of the construction and marketing of the active adult community at the Regency, will be performing the same function at the Emerald site if approved. This will ensure continuity with the model community at the Regency and the continued cooperation with the city departments. Now, in order to place this petition into context, it's necessary to begin not as the date of our application, but 9 years ago, when on March 15th, 2004, the prior owner of this parcel of land obtained a special permit to develop an 18-hole golf course, including a clubhouse, a full-service function facility, and somewhere between 74 and 101 single and attached family homes. This plan appears to have been the dream of the developer, but unfortunately, not all dreams come true. And events, some of which were outside the control of the developer, intervened, causing this project to be abandoned. The economic climate further contributed to the difficulty for the developer to obtain financing for the construction, completion, and continued operation of a golf course. However, from the outset of said approval and subsequent modifications, because the developer kept changing plans, this development was beset with numerous construction problems and delays, which included, but not limited to, the following: sewage and related environmental issues brought about by the placement of the pump station at an unauthorized location. This pump was poorly constructed, failing multiple times, causing sewage to seep into the wetlands. Some of the residents of homes sold by the prior owner are serviced by ejector E1 pumps, which need to be converted. And there was a disturbance of wildlife at the site, just to name a few of the problems. Toll has already begun to expend time and resources in order to correct some of these problems by installing a second pump with a remote dialer for emergency maintenance to prevent future wetlands violations. In addition, Toll is working on a plan to convert those homeowners which are presently being serviced by these E1 ejector pumps, and further has plans to loop the water at the site through Judith E. Lane. And this will not only benefit the development, but the surrounding neighborhood, because that water dead ends at House Street at that location. And looping the water will be a great benefit to the city, the neighborhood, without the city burdening its finances. As part of this improvement plan, Toll will be requesting an easement over adjacent land that abuts the site that's in question in order to run utilities, in order to finish fixing the water, sewer, and drainage problems. So by way of summary, what you had as far as an approval was a golf course with the function facility, which I'll get to later by just common sense is going to generate a lot more traffic than what we proposed. They're not going to be weddings and events. They're not going to be golfing leagues. You're going to have a 55 and older community accessing in and out of that location. The hours would be staggered. So we feel, and later on I will submit a memorandum to that effect in regards to the traffic being alleviated as to what's there, what was approved. And the homes that were approved were not age restricted, and that could have more of an impact on the school system than obviously what you will hear in my proposal in a few minutes. Now, Toll is proposing to construct 140 residential single-family homes. There will be a variety of styles consisting of high-quality construction, containing many amenities, including a clubhouse, pool area, and where would we be if we didn't include bocce courts in Methuen? I think we are, per capita, the highest as far as bocce courts per resident. Now, submitted with this petition are several exhibits, and I'm going to call your attention to Exhibit C in your packet. And there is a reduced 8.5 by 11. It's a concept plan. It's the colored, plan, and I've submitted it both 8.5 by 11 and a larger plan. If you look at that plan, and you'll see that there is an area designated as Parcel A. If anyone has difficulty, I will be more than happy to point that out for you, but you'll see there's a designation of Parcel A, and that's the parcel that contains the 121.5 acres, and it will depict a proposed layout of the roadways and the homes at the site.
Right here. Right here. Right here. That's Parcel.
Is anyone having difficulty finding that? Now, before I continue, you should be aware that there are two other parcels designated on that plan, Parcel B and Parcel C. Toll has legal title to both Parcel B and Parcel C. Both of these parcels were included in the prior owner's grant of special permit. Parcel B contains 14.8 acres, and Parcel C contains 19.2 acres. I'll give everyone a minute to see if they can follow that. So Parcel B and Parcel C combined equal 34 acres. Our proposal is those 34 acres will remain as open space. Toll will voluntarily impose a deed restriction on both parcels, restricting the use as open space in perpetuity. As a result, it was not necessary for us to include these parcels in our rezoning petition, but they make up the locus. And while you're on parcel A, let me further point out that out of the 121.5 acres, 83 of those acres will be reserved as open space. And that makes for a coverage of 68% of parcel A will be reserved as open space. This is in addition to the 34 acres which were constituted by Lot B and C, for a total area of 117 acres of open space will remain at the site. Now, not all open space is equal. The 117 acres of open space, as provided for us by this proposal, is significantly different in nature than the development of a golf course. Unlike the construction and operation of a golf course, which requires the changing of the topography of the land and continued maintenance and use of that land, these 117 acres will mostly remain undisturbed, leaving the land in its natural state, causing the least disturbance to the environment and the wildlife. So now let me step back and let's look at an overview of the entire plan that you have before you. If you can envision, when you enter this particular parcel of land off of Howe Street, you would enter on Pine Tree Road, I believe, Pine Tree Drive. At the beginning of Pine Tree Drive, you will see that there's a lighter shade of gray signifying 19 lots. Those 19 lots were released by the city after the prior owner developed the lots. Of the 19 lots, the prior owner sold 14 which have homes on them, another one which was vacant. So there are approximately 15 homes that the prior owner sold. There was one prior existing home, an older home, and there were now 3 additional vacant lots. Toll has worked closely with the owners of those 14 to 15 lots because they understand, they've met with the neighbors and the owners of these lots on several occasions. They understand their frustration. They understand their disappointment as to what was going to be and now what is in effect an abandoned project. And Toll is trying to work with these abutters, and they've agreed to include this beginning parcel and make it all part of the same complex. They want to make this parcel a component or a phase of the adult community association. This will create an aesthetically pleasing atmosphere, having a continuity of landscape and entrance design, and it will alleviate some of the burden that these owners have in the maintenance of that roadway. Now, because these existing homes are larger and have more square footage than what we're proposing, this phase will be referred to as the estate collection at Emerald Pines, and you can see that designated on the plan. Now, we may change the name Emerald Pines, but the concept is we want an inclusive effect here. So it will be the estate collection at Emerald Pines, designating that these are larger homes. Upon leaving the estate collection, there will be a further entrance into the site of the active adult community, and that will be referred to as the Villas collection at Emerald Pines. To give you an idea of how this whole this whole community will blend. Now, directing your attention to parcel A. Again, when you look at parcel A, you will note the following. First, this is an irregular shaped lot. Not only is it irregularly shaped, it is extremely irregularly shaped. If you take a look at it, it is really an unusually shaped layout, making the placement of the homes and the roadways challenging, to say the least. Second, there's an area of wetlands that traverses the lot approximately in the middle. And third, this parcel, in part, abuts the city of Haverhill. So now, to put Toll's proposal and its zoning change in context, it's necessary in order to provide for the appropriate density and flexibility in the layout of the homes and roadways with amenities in order to develop a successful, and the key there is successful, adult community. The placement of the 140 homes on a gross area of 156.5 acres renders a density of 1 home per 1.12 acres of land. That's certainly not an overburdening of the land. If you calculate the net developable land, you're still looking at a little under an acre per house as far as density is concerned. Now, I mentioned the key word is successful. In order to create a successful community, there has to be a balancing of interest. The homeowners association is required to maintain the roadways, snow plowing, trash removal, street lighting. There is an economy of scale here. Those homeowners association fees need to be manageable, because if they're not, it doesn't help anyone, the homeowner or the city, because if homes can't be sold, the city's not going to generate money on assessed values of these homes. So what Toll is proposing is a very reasonable density mixture. Now, to alleviate any concerns that the council and board may have, Toll is proposing the following. First, if approved, Toll will enter into a restrictive covenant with the city to limit ownership of these homes to residents 55 years or older in compliance with federal regulations. Second, Toll will voluntarily restrict the number of homes to 140 on Parcel A. Third, Parcel B and Parcel C, as indicated, will be restricted to open space in perpetuity, and again, that's in addition to the 83 acres on Parcel A. And fourth, a homeowners association will be responsible for the maintenance of those areas that I mentioned previously. We will work with legal counsel for the city to ensure compliance with the above. But understand, Toll has already entered into similar restrictions when it developed the Regency. So we don't need to recreate the wheel, but we'll work to satisfy the city that we are committed to those terms. So, as a result, this proposed adult community will generate substantial revenue for the city in the form of real estate taxes, permitting fees, and it will have considerably less impact on city services than a traditional subdivision. And understand, we've already conceded it's 55 and older. There's no impact on the school system. The city needs to look no further than the Regency as a template for an analysis of the revenues that are going to be generated by this type of community. We do have a PowerPoint presentation that I will submit at the end of my presentation, and in addition, I will be submitting a trip generation memorandum prepared by MHF Engineering, and basically just summarizing it, it indicates that this current proposal will generate less traffic than the golf course and non-age restricted homes. Understanding age restricted, you don't have that peak hour rush in the morning and in the evening. You do have some, but not as much as you would with a normal subdivision. Now, finally, this proposal complies with the planning objectives as set forth in Methuen's master plan. The plan acknowledges that the largest population growth is 55 to 64 age group in Methuen. I don't know if that's been updated, but that's what I read. So there's a real need for this type of housing. The plan also encourages the preservation of open space and protection of wildlife, the stabilization of the tax rate, and understand the unintended benefits. Local businesses will certainly generate more income by this community that will tend to spend money rather than leave it to their children. So that will have some impact on local services. So if allowed, Toll will be able to bring to completion this abandoned property, making needed improvements to the land and infrastructure while enhancing the value of the neighborhood. Presently, this land is not generating much in the form of tax revenue, and those revenues would be maximized. Now, I know the board and the council is aware of this, but I just want to go on record that obviously this petition for zoning change is only the first step in a long process. Toll is now required to obtain a special permit from the Community Development Board in order to complete and to construct and complete this community. So at that time, we would be submitting preliminary definitive plans that have much more detail than we could possibly give you today. All we can do is give you a detail, and I thank you for your attention. And if there are any questions that I can answer, if I can't, I will certainly direct it to someone who can. I'll step aside so you can hear from public.
Thank you. Any questions from anybody from the council for Attorney Capani? Any questions for anybody else here for Attorney Capani?
I'll ask a couple.
Council Marsan?
Can you come up, Mr. Capani? Thank you. You say this fits within our master plan because of the open space and what they're leaving for open space here, but don't we have an OSRD type development that we can open space plan development that's on the books already? Is there a reason why they couldn't go down that avenue as opposed to needing a zoning change?
You're absolutely correct. And having looked through that open space special permit provision, it was challenging reading, first of all, I will say. And secondly, I don't think there has been a special permit on open space applied or approved at this point. And when I looked at that, and we discussed that as an avenue, because obviously that's a lot easier to get to cross-go than it is to go and try to effect a zoning change and then get a special permit. First of all, there is a yield formula contained in the open space residential special permit provision. That yield formula is somewhat confusing, and it was ambiguous in our case because we didn't have a real good starting point. We didn't know whether to start as undeveloped land or as a base start what was approved, which was the golf course, because the yield gives you different numbers. But setting that aside, even if we agreed upon the yield formula and came up with 100 homes, you could get a 10% density bonus for 55 and older, or one for two, and you can also get some moderate income, another 10%. And when we first looked at that, it made some sense. However, when we started changing to age targeted and now age restricted, what in effect you have, if we apply for that open space, that would not hurt the city, but that would not benefit the city as much as our proposal, and I'll explain why. If we come in under the open space special permit, if we get approval for 120 homes as opposed to 140, and we get the differential on 55 and older, 100 homes will not be age restricted, and that will greatly impact the school system. So if we applied that special permit open space, what I didn't want is to have to come before you and say, well, we'll have 100 homes, they're not going to be age restricted, and then we have another issue to come up with, and do we want to do an impact on the city? Now, as far as when you look at it, we've already given it up in that all of our units are 55 and older. So this is more of a benefit to the city than applying the open space special permit. But absolutely, we looked at that, and we considered it strongly. It was an easier place to get to, but we do want to do an age restricted, because that's where Toll has an expertise on it. It has a model that worked, and we feel that there's a need. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't think there was a need. No one's going to go in and do a community like this if there wasn't a need. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what we looked at. And I think that addresses it. Yeah.
Thank you.
All set? Anyone else? Thank you, Attorney Capani.
Okay.
Anyone from the Community Development Board have any questions for the applicant? Attorney Capani? Before you sit down.
I'm back.
Should the council grant the request for the zoning change, single-family homes are allowed by right. What's the guarantee to the council and community development board that once granted, that we won't find a traditional subdivision going in?
All right. As I indicated, we did this once before, and at that time, the city solicitor and myself worked out the documents, and Morris LaRiviere was the solicitor at that time. And I can provide you afterwards with a sample of the vote that the then city council took. City council took a vote. What they did is they voted to amend the zoning in that district, and then they said, and I don't want to say this to you as you're the chair, but then they directed the Community Development Board not to issue a special permit unless the following conditions were met. And that was a limit on the number of homes and other provisions. So let me state this. We've done it before. I have a sample vote. Your new legal counsel or solicitor or legal counsel, whoever's Copeland and Page, whoever you want me to run that by, it's not something that can't be addressed and can't be memorialized in a legally binding document.
Okay, thank you. On the other question I had was with regard to the now age restricted. What mechanism will be in place to guarantee age restriction?
Okay. Referring back to my last answer, the Community Development Board was required to limit the number of homes to age restricted to 55 and older, and those would be recorded at the registry, and they would be deed restricted.
Okay. The 140 units that you were discussing, the 140 units, did you say that included the 19 out front?
No.
Or there are 140 new units?
That's, if you look at the plan, those 140 are on parcel A.
Okay.
The first parcel that has been conveyed out mostly, and by the way, those lots were released by the Community Development Board. Those are in addition to.
Okay.
And again, it's the density works out to 1.12.
Yeah. I'll check that again, because the density I have is different. But the, actually, the last question is just a comment that this, if the zoning does change, this is only the first step, that you need to apply for a special permit.
Correct.
So if you are granted the zoning, that doesn't mean you start construction tomorrow.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble.
If you are granted the zoning change, you don't start construction tomorrow.
No. As you're aware, we'll be before your board on several occasions and working the plans, preliminary and definitive, before we can put a shovel in the ground.
Okay, thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Capani, I just had one question for you while you're up there still. In the third paragraph of your petition, it has the change listed as to a multifamily residence MA district.
MA.
Okay, so
That,
can you explain that?
right. Presently, the zoning is residential rural,
Right.
and the designation is RR. There are other designations in the town. There's MA, there's MB. An MA allows for 2 dwellings per acre. An MB allows for 4 dwellings per acre. Basically, we went with the least restrictive, or the more restrictive, MA, 2 per acre, and what we're delivering, we may be off a little on the calculations, but we're delivering approximately 1 home per acre.
Okay, well, I mean, by any means, I'm not saying I'm a zoning expert. By saying multifamily residence in that third paragraph, I think I need some clarification when this goes further.
The reason, because when we apply to Community Development Board, we have to pigeonhole one of the special permits that are listed, and one is multifamily homes. And that allows us to come in and gives us the flexibility to do the plan. And that's what we did at the Regency, and it allows for more diversity, more flexibility in developing the site, keeping in mind, again, whatever we have stated, we will work with your legal counsel to make sure that the city is protected. 140 homes, deed restricted, open space in perpetuity, all of that we will work out, and it would be a condition of your vote to put that into perspective.
That would just be my question, this is the first petition going forward in front of us, but when somebody sees the wording multifamily residence,
Right.
it obviously, imposes some questions for us.
Right.
That's what I'm asking at this point.
And again, to make it clear, that if the council were to vote to approve this, and they would say, we approve it, but we're requiring the Community Development Board not to approve more than 140 homes, 55 and older, I think that would protect you. But if your council feels otherwise, we'll enter in whatever agreement that they feel necessary.
Hey, and just one other question. What is the zoning at the Regency right now, when that was changed?
I believe the zoning at the Regency is MB.
MB?
Yeah.
So if the zoning there is MB, why would this one be MA?
Well, we don't need that density. MB would allow 4 per acre, MA only allows 2 per acre, but we're willing to voluntarily commit to 140 homes, which is 1 per acre. Just rounding off.
All right, thank you.
Attorney Capani, just a couple of simple questions. Now that you're moving to age restricted,
What's that?
Now that you're moving to the age restricted instead of age targeted,
The whole, the units on, the homes on parcel A will be age restricted.
so there'll be no change to the estates, what you're calling the estates. It's going to stay as is as
Right.
far as age.
Which one are you referring to?
What you're calling the existing homes.
The existing homes
Will not-
will stay the way they are, because they were, those permits were issued pursuant to the special permit issued by the board, and they were valid at that time.
And last question, will this be gated? And if so, will the gate be at House Street or at the beginning of the parcel A?
Well, I'll attempt to answer that, but I'll ask Dave Bauer to come forward. The plan right now is to have an entranceway right off of Howell Street, and it will say, I forgot the name that I had just said, the estate collection at Emerald Pine. And then when you go further through, there'll be another sign, another wall with some signage that says the Villa Collection. But I'll have Mr. Bauer come forward. Yeah, is that it? Not gated. Okay, that was easy enough. Not gated.
Council Campion.
Attorney Capani, could you just touch upon, what is the market for homes such as these? With
That's
the real estate?
That's beyond my area of expertise, but I will call they want to know what the price of these projected homes are.
I'm not, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. but
No,
I'm
it's
just curious
not- it's-
As to, the market for this type of a home in area. I mean, I would just hate to see this big development go up, and then we're gonna have all these empty homes, which, I hope we don't. I wish you all the luck if this goes through. But I'm just curious about the development in the market.
Yep, Dave Bauer with Toll Brothers. We're certainly going to model the marketing approach after the Regency community, and the similar homes that the Regency are currently selling around the 500, 450 to 500 range, but there are certain factors over there that we feel are going to be enhanced in terms of the separation between the homes and potentially the size of the homes. So we think that we could see pricing move up from there, but it's really hard to say. We haven't completed our full analysis yet.
Thank you.
Council Marson.
Question for the attorney again. If we go through with the rezone, the estate collection, and we remove the overlay of the golf course, the existing estate collection are gonna be on undersized lots. They're no longer on 2 acres in an RR zone if we vote to rezone this. How does that leave those residents that they're not included in part of the rezone? I'm sure somebody's thought about it.
Yep,
just that I don't know
I've
how the
given that-
discussions went with them.
I've given it thought. My opinion, and I've been wrong before, those lots were developed by the prior owner. They were developed pursuant to the special permit for a golf course overlay at the time, and that's how that began. And then Methuen took the golf overlay, and when they amended their zoning ordinance, it's no longer a golf overlay, it is a special permit for a residential golf community. But at the time when they first started this process, it was a golf overlay. The prior owner appeared before the Community Development Board, and this is what I can just glean from the record, and when I looked at the documents at the Registry of Deeds, I found that there were releases, and they weren't all done at once, but there were releases that were recorded releasing those 19 lots, meaning releasing them from the conditions imposed by community development, meaning that the prior owner was now able to sell those lots to potential buyers, some of which are here this evening. So when those permits were issued, they obtained a building permit, an occupancy permit. Those are valid existing homes, and if nothing else, they are grandfathered in at this point. And if we had to go in and include those on the rezone, it would just be very messy and unnecessary, because they exist pursuant to validly issued permit at the time. Now, the fact that the project got abandoned does not take away from the legitimacy of those homes.
I understand that. I'm just concerned that if we vote as a city to take away the overlay, now we've made those non-conforming lots. And that's all.
Yeah.
I'm concerned.
Well,
I understand they're pre-existing non-conforming, so they would be the potential for them to be grandfathered, but the city is the one who's taking away the overlay.
Either way, if this doesn't get approved, it's still, the special permit is either going to lapse or be void, or be a lack of prosecuting it. In other words, there's not going to be a golf course there. It would be in limbo. No matter which way you go, those houses exist pursuant to valid issued permits, and no matter what happens at the site, their status is going to be the same. Their status is not improved or harmed in any way, no matter what happens at that site. And again, it's no longer a golf overlay, it's a special permit now, pursuant to the new zoning change. And I believe when they came back for modifications, it was under the special permit, but I could be wrong.
Thank you.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes, Attorney Capani, I have a question. With the existing homes, and you mentioned something about the existing pump station?
Yeah.
And that has to be changed, right?
Right.
Do the existing homes, what is Toll Brothers doing for the existing homes? Are they going to have to pay? I mean, what's
Well,
going to happen to them?
As I said, and they'll be here to speak, we've worked closely with them, and not to be repetitive, but immediately Toll has come in and corrected a very serious problem with those pumps. And I don't want to bore you, but if you look at the plan, you'll see that the location of the pump is located before the wetlands that traverses in the middle of the lot.
I see it.
That pumping station was a temporary pumping station. The site of the pumping station should have been after the wetlands, and it should have had a larger capacity. So that was there temporary in nature, because I understand you wouldn't want to cross wetlands because that's a very expensive proposition, but that pumping station is in an unauthorized location. So what Toll has done is they've corrected and fixed it, and as I said, has a single, so now if there's an emergency overflow, they can react quickly to prevent further damage. Now, and I'll speak briefly, and I'll call Scott Maselli in a minute to give you more specifics. But part of this whole proposal, there'll be some very needed improvements made in the area. As I indicated, this property abuts the City of Haverhill line. And the significance of that is because the water that runs on House Street kind of dead ends right at that city line, somewhere around there. And by us looping the water, we will greatly increase the flow and whatever else happens when you loop water, because, and I know the town is big on, or the city is big on looping water, but one of the things will happen is that water will be looped. The homeowners that are here this evening, there's about 4 or 5 that are on these ejector pumps. And Mr. Marsan corrected me properly, but those pumps can be a permanent thing, but they're not an ideal situation. Part of those residents, their sewage flows to House Street. It's a gravity fed, and I could be wrong, and others go to the pump. The goal is to have everyone be gravity fed, and that's would eliminate some of the problems that you have with these ejector pumps. So that's only part of what they will hopefully correct, which will benefit these homeowners. So we've worked with them. We want to include them in the association. We want to alleviate some of their burdens, and certainly we're taking an abandoned project with these problems and fixing it.
sorry to interrupt.
No, go right ahead.
Dave Bauer with Toll Brothers. I just want to make sure we answered your question, which is Toll Brothers is going to pay to retrofit those homes. And we've already spent $16,000 on the pump station. We certainly wouldn't ask the existing residents to spend any money to get connected to the permanent facilities that we're going to put in.
That was my question. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Capani? Thank you. All right, from the public, if those in favor of the project want to come up and speak, you could come up to the podium at this time. If you can, just state your name and address when you come up to the podium, please.
Good evening. My name is Steve Early. I live at 2 Pine Tree Drive, which is one of the first houses as you enter the development. I brought with me tonight, it's in the hands of Attorney Capani, a petition. It's a very simple petition signed by 11 out of the 14 current property owners speaking in favor of Toll Brothers doing this development. And I'll give it to you if you'd like to have it. So we've been meeting with Toll Brothers since they originally expressed interest in this property. And the first thing that we had to do is all the homeowners in that development had to sign a waiver, which was in our deed, that said that we understood that there wasn't going to be a golf course. That hurt. A lot of us bought there because we wanted a golf course. But, you know, things happen and it is what it is. And Toll Brothers has been wonderful in terms of working with us. The pumping station issue that Tony was just referring to, an alarm was going off down there, indicating that there was an issue with that. If we, the homeowners, had to come up with the money to replace that pumping station, we couldn't have done it. And we're very, very grateful to Toll Brothers for having stepped in and rectified that situation. So they've been a great partner to us. We want to see the development succeed. We're tired of going down that road and seeing weeds and piles of rocks and stuff where, you know, we should have been walking on walking paths or something like that by now. But we're all in favor of this development. We did not get 3 of the signatures of residents, not because we don't think that they're in favor of it, because the fact that they all signed the waiver indicates to me that they want this to go through. One of the residents is a absentee owner. He lives in Florida. And 2 of the other residents, it's just the 4th of July weekend, and we just couldn't find him at home. But I'm confident, and the other trustees are confident that they would have signed this if we could have gotten to them. Who should I give this to?
You can bring it up. Anyone else want to speak in favor of the project? Okay, in opposition of the project, if you want to start by row, if anyone wants to come up. So if you can just state your name and address when you come up, please.
John Malone, Brookdale Ave. Personally, I don't think we need any more houses in Methuen, especially that many. I mean, what about all the animals and stuff that are out there? I know you guys were going to do the golf course anyways, no matter what anybody said. The golf course went in. But everybody in the neighborhood feels the same as I do. We don't need any more stuff, you know, more houses, more people. You guys built that one in Methuen for the old people there. That's a lot of traffic there. No, I'm not saying use. But you know what I'm saying? The one that's on 110? I mean, there's a lot of traffic there from the people that are in there. What makes this going to be any different?
Thank you.
I'm John Mims. I live at 100 Woburn Street, Methuen, down in the valley. And I was sort of in favor of the golf course if they were going to do something and I didn't have a choice with anything. At least I would have still left some open land. There's a lot of wildlife that come through the back of my home, and there's also been some problems with water, where there's been a distinct odor coming through the back of my home, and I feel as though if they keep building back there, it's just going to create more problems. And also, when they talk about the 55 and older, I'm 55. I don't plan on selling my home and moving somewhere else, and I'm not sure how many people can actually afford to move into an area that's going to be $500,000 or more, to talk about even a higher increase in these homes. And I just don't feel as though it would be an asset to build these homes if we could come up with something else, something for the community, something that could still raise money for the city. Other than homes, there are other things that could be put on this land if we were able to do that. That's just my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak?
Evening, my name is Edward Casero. I'm an abutter, but I'm a Haverhill resident. I really, I can't say whether I'm opposed or for this because I haven't seen it. It's clear that the Toll brothers have worked with the estate people, but I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what my impact is. I stood here 7 years ago and I asked, what happens if this golf course doesn't go through? And I was told, nothing. It's just going to sit there forever. Well, things change. Here we are. Methuen is having quite the cherry dangled in front of it. So I can see there are a lot of positives coming out of it, but I want to know how it impacts me. And I don't have any answers to that right yet. So when can the abutters have a copy of these documents? When can we find out more about them? And besides the people in the estate? That's my question.
They will, certainly those documents will be public record, and they'll be available to the abutters. I don't know, were those sent out to the abutters? I don't know, Mr. Buckley?
I'll tell you what I got. I got this piece of paper.
Mr. Buckley, if you want to come up for a second. I'll have him answer that for you, sir, that way you...
Yeah, for the record, William Buckley, Director of Economic and Community Development here in the city. So the petition that was submitted is public record. We have that available in our, in the Community Development Department, which is right downstairs on the second floor. I'd be happy to give you my card after the meeting or during the meeting here. But I just do want to let you know that the plans right now are just conceptual plans on a zoning change. Much more detailed plans showing real specific impacts of grading and drainage and other issues that may impact butters will be at a future step in the process. But I'm more than happy to talk to you during the meeting here.
Thank you, and I would appreciate that. The other gentleman before me, he also made some comments about wildlife. Now, I am an abutter, and I can tell you I see a lot of wildlife in my backyard, and I like it. And I hope that they're going to understand the impact of that. So I'm not one of these tree huggers, but there are a lot of animals out there that depend on those woods, and they don't care if you're 55 or older or younger. So if you have an impact on that and can influence that, I ask you to do so.
Thank you.
Susan Adams, 5 Judith E. Lane, and where you see the water, the utilities coming in, that's directly beside my home. And we would just like for the city to consider some of the other options that might be there. They may be more expensive, but Washington Street or Old Ferry Road would appear to be less disruptive to the conservation land that has been deeded to the city. So we'd just like those to be considered.
Thank you. Anyone else on that side to speak? And on the other side, if anyone would like to come up?
Good evening. My name is Michelle Godin. I live at 9 Grandview Road in Methuen. My parents built the house that we live in 1989. And when we opened up that land, we did not clear cut the land because we were respectful of what was already there. Whose houses we were already disrupting, those being the wildlife. That is a very big concern for me. I think that we have too many houses in this area now as it is. The impact on the wildlife is substantial. I'm disappointed in the initial vote to have the golf course put in because of what it did, and now it's just sitting there, ugly, abandoned, and I don't want to see anything else like that happen. I think that if we have more houses come in, that more residents, it's going to be too taxing on the roadways. I understand they explained about the water, but how do we know that's going to work? And what about the power lines? We have power outages all the time. If you have that many more residents, that's much more power being drawn. What is that going to do to us that live there already? And, you know, you only get so many first chances. This is a second chance for us to do this right. Once you go there, you can't go back. And once we give them permission to build all these houses on parcel A, yeah, I know they're talking about parcel B and C aren't going to be touched, but how do we know that? And there's hardly any untainted land left in Methuen, and